But it starts with your attitude about all this. If you stay mentally in the traditional selling model and you start the day running on false confidence, Glenn Turby used to say, you head out, you're a bullfighter with mustard on your sword. You rarely wind up that way at the end of the day.
Hello and welcome to this month's Masterclass. I'm Darcy Juarez here with Dan Kennedy. And Dan, I'm excited to dive into this month's class titled Zero Resistance Selling. And like you've done with marketing, you've opened our eyes to a new and better way. You've done the same with the selling experience, created a new experience free of all the resistance and obstacles manufactured in our minds and free of the resistance from the prospect. Can you start us off today with defining zero resistance selling?
The normal sales process has all kinds of friction, all kinds of automatic almost resistance. And the answer to it, when I started in selling, pretty much all the training was about overcoming this resistance.
Yeah.
So you were in combat is really the deal. And like we used to have, the affirmation was, I can get a check out of a rock, meaning I can close anybody. And salespeople took pride in this. It was most selling was pretty fierce. There was very few companies, big or small, had any idea about preparing the prospect to buy. Their attitude, and the attitude still in many businesses is, that's what I'm paying the sales guy for. So we stick him in front of anybody. We used to say, if they got a wallet and a pulse, you should be able to close them. And so I got good, and I can do that. I have those skills. If I ever had to use them, I could use them. But the smarter goal is not to have to need it. The combat approach is exhausting to the salesperson, and it's exhausting to the prospect. The reason why there's so much just resistance to engaging with salespeople is because of how they sell. So you particularly Gen X, et cetera, down, they're very resistant to meeting with a salesperson. The financial advisor community has a tough time with this, and it's because of the experiences they had with being sold as an exercise of combat. So I lived with it for about 3 years and just reached a point that, this is nuts. I mean, this is just insane. So what zero resistance selling means now is the opposite. It means instead of knowing how and being able to overcome the organic resistance from buyers, we create ways to erase the resistance from buyers. Better for us, better for them. The classic objections, instead of waiting for them to be raised by the prospect toward the end of the sale. So often a salesperson feels like they're there and he's ready to get the order form out of his briefcase, and they trot out an objection. And now his subconscious mind goes through the 101 answers to objections that he learned, and he answers the objection. Now there's another objection. Now there's another objection. And now the sale dissolves while you're answering objections. So instead, we want to preempt the objections so that we raise them and erase them. So that's some of that's mechanical stuff. We'll come back to it. But it starts with your attitude about all this. If you stay mentally in the traditional selling model and you start the day running on false confidence, Glenn Turby used to say, you head out, you're a bullfighter with mustard on your sword. You rarely wind up that way at the end of the day. I used to tell this story. I think there's time in this module. So right here, when I was young, in Fairlawn, it's an Akron suburb, there was a breakfast place called Egg Castle, and there was a bar called Dry Dock. Ironic. Like right next to each other in this little shopping center. And it was surrounded by mid-rises, and almost every insurance agency had an office in those mid-rises. So if you wanted an insurance agent at between 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning, just go to Egg Castle, because they would all leave the offices. They would all leave the morning sales meeting, and they would stop at Egg Castle to have a quick breakfast. The enthusiasm is palpable. They're on their way with mustard on their sword. This is the day, etc. Now, at 4 o'clock, when happy hour starts at the dry dock, happy hour as ironic as the name dry dock, they all come back to roost. There's all the same insurance agents who were at Edcastle in the morning are now at dry dock. You can look around, you can see them, they're all the same. And they're all wilted and weary and grievance-ridden. They give all the good leads to somebody else. They got 52 excuses for why today was not the day.
Yeah.
Right? Well, so they were trying to run purely on false confidence. The salesperson has to change the way they think about selling and about the prospect.
So let's talk a little bit more then about that attitude aspect of this.
So there's I think it's out of print, not sure, but the Zero Resistance Selling book, there's a chapter in it about this. And on page 40, there's a little illustration of opposing choices that you can make about, for example, objections. And so the salesperson can choose to think about them through the prism of frustration or through the prism of creative imagination. So you can look at this as, this is arduous and unpleasant, and why do I have to keep dealing with all these objections? And just about the time the sale seems ready to close, they trot out this bullshit, and I have to deal with it. And so you can be really frustrated about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or you can choose to deal with it with your creative imagination, which is the only way you'll be able to actually stop that from happening.
Check out the website down below to get full access to all the Masterclass videos from Dan Kennedy. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and check out these videos.